It's interesting that Charlotte School of Law is coming online at a time when a lot of people and groups are questioning the way that law schools are doing legal education. So there's been a couple of reports out. One's called the Carnegie Report on legal education, and then another one's best practices on teaching legal education by the CLEA, Clinical Legal Educators Association. So these reports talk about that we're doing things very well in the first year of law school and how we're teaching lawyers how to think like a lawyer, teaching students how to think like a lawyer. But then we just kind of lose ground the second and third year and often end up doing the same things over and over. So they give recommendations to law schools about how to better teach students to become lawyers. And part of that recommendation is to be integrative, to look at your outcomes. What do you want to produce? What do you want your graduates to be able to do? And then to back up from that and say, okay, well, where are we going to teach them that? And so the school is building a curriculum that tries to be integrative, very thoughtful, and the experiential learning opportunities are some of the best ways to learn. Hands-on, you're learning in the context, you're learning in the role of the lawyer. And so part of my job is to look for those places in the curriculum where we can add hands-on experiences to enrich the learning that's going on in the classroom and to enhance it and to give opportunities to students to actually practice being a lawyer. One of the things we're doing in the fall to that end is we are having an immigration course, and there's going to be a clinical lab attached to the course. So 8 students who are in the course will be able to work on immigration cases with immigration lawyers during the course of the semester. One of the things that I've both observed and experienced as a death penalty attorney is the trauma that the legal team suffers. And not much is done about that. We hope to do some of that with the Capital Restorative Justice Project, but it's hard to get lawyers to talk about it. Lawyers are trained to put aside their emotions so they can do the hard work they have to do and then to move on to the next case. And that serves them very well, by the way. The problem is when you're traumatized, particularly in a death penalty case, when you have a client who's executed, if you don't address the trauma that is caused and the pain is caused, then you can become, dysfunctional or, well, let's just say that lawyers have a high rate of alcoholism, depression, even suicide. So it's so important for lawyers to be educated, number one, in law school about the importance of taking care of self. So students need to be educated in law school that it's not a stigma to suffer from depression or to have a drinking problem, that you need to address those things head on and to, again, take care of yourself and admit that something is wrong here. And it's normal. It's normal for anyone who suffers that kind of trauma to find a way to address it, to deal with it, to go on, to be able to represent others. To me, the highest calling of the law is to serve others. It is a service profession, and the highest calling is actually to be able to serve those who otherwise would not be able to have an advocate, to have someone fight for them. My first client was Zane Hill, and he's from actually one of the hollers right outside of Asheville. I spent a lot of time in the hollers around Asheville interviewing his family, his friends, and he shot and killed his adult son. And his wife was very torn. At first, she would have nothing to do with him. But after a couple of years, she forgave him, and she started visiting him. And she would visit him regularly. And their relationship probably had never been better. She had to drive 4 hours to get to the prison to see him. They would visit for an hour, a couple hours, and then she would drive home. When he was executed, he was my first, and I witnessed it. And it's so surreal. Each one has been different of the four that I've witnessed. For Zane, they actually over-medicated him, and so he was asleep, or at least had that appearance of being asleep. He didn't open his eyes. And they put a little baby blue blanket that goes all the way up to their chin. So he was just lying there. And we're only, the glass, he's right up against the glass, and we're just a couple feet from that. It's very tight quarters. And you have the police officers in there, you have the prosecutors in there, and then you had the defense attorneys, because his family didn't want to be there. Watched him killed. After that, it was very hard to kind of get back into the real world, because of what you just experienced. It's like one of those things that no one should go through. You don't even really have a language to talk about it, and you don't know what to say about it, and people don't know what to ask you about it. I guess it's similar in some ways in other types of loss. And I was physically traumatized in that I couldn't go back to the prison where they had executed him. I just couldn't. It's like the thought of it just paralyzed me. So the first time I returned to the prison, which I had other clients I had to go see there, I had my husband go with me, because I just couldn't do it alone. The other part of it is just going to work and just, okay, now on to the next case. I mean, how do you do that? No one tells you kind of how to deal with this. And as I've mentioned before, is that lawyers aren't good at dealing with emotions a lot of times because we're trained to put them aside. But one attorney really helped me, Ty Hunter. He was the appellate defender at the time, and he called me in his office, and he just asked me, "So what'd you see?" And I talked about it, and that really helped, just to tell someone what I saw. But it was a long time before I could talk about it with anyone. Years, really, before I could talk about the individual executions. Because in some ways it just seemed so personal, and that and so unspeakable. But as the more I started talking about it, the more I realized that, number one, it helped me deal with it, but also it helped other people understand one of the many reasons why the death penalty doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to be causing all this trauma. What restorative justice is about bringing healing to these situations, not just thinking in terms of, let's punish, and because a wrong was done, we punish, but rather, okay, a wrong was done, now what? Who is hurting? How can we make it better? Yes, the inmate has to pay the price, but what way can it be most healing to all those involved? And executions do not heal anyone.